But even CNN, this was before the debate, they were looking into some things that Kamala stood for, and check out what they found to be a shocker.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote all weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that idea not go against fundamentally the Second Amendment?
Yeah, so, great question.
Check out the links in the description for my favorite apparel, Bibles, books, commentaries, and more. Howdy, y'all. I'm Brylan. So did you watch the debate last night? I know how you feel. In fact, I love this cartoon by SKS Cartoon. It's Trump debating the moderators, and then you hear, "Excuse me," and they turn around and Kamala says, "Do you still need me here?" Hey, real quick, would you hit that thumbs up button? You know when you like this video to get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. You know, this entire debate was clearly biased. It was a total setup, an absolute sham. It was essentially a 3-on-1 debate. And in fact, they fact-checked Trump like a dozen times and didn't fact-check Kamala once. Not one time did they fact-check Kamala and her lies. You don't have to be a fan of Trump to clearly see that this was an insanely biased debate, that the moderators were completely in on trying to protect Kamala as much as they can. You know, a lot of people give credit to CNN for being so unbiased when Trump and Biden did their debate. But what we have to realize is that the reason why CNN were unbiased is because they wanted Biden out. So they kind of stayed out of it and, well, let Biden do his thing. And it was his downfall. Clearly, you can see in this debate that the ABC moderators were debating Trump as well. In fact, it was Megyn Kelly that pointed out that one of the execs at ABC is a close personal friend of Kamala Harris. And, well, in fact, she was responsible for Kamala and her husband meeting. No bias whatsoever. But since Trump was already fact-checked by the moderators every chance they could get, I thought, hey, why don't we do a video where we fact-check Kamala? Because, you know, she lied constantly. In fact, here's just a few of the lies that I caught when I was watching the debate. There's way more than this. This video could be a couple hours long. So here's some important lies. She talked about taking life at the womb at 9 months. She said, no, nobody ever does that. Well, we're going to look into that. She lied about the border. She lied about Project 25. She lied about fracking. She lied about gun confiscation. She lied about the economy, and she lied about defund the police. She also lied about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and she tried to downplay that, but there's 13 people who aren't coming home to their families. After the debate, there was a poll done by CNN. They asked who would be better to handle the economy. And look at this. Before the debate, it was 37% to Kami and 53% to President Trump. And then after the debate, it actually dropped 2% for Kami and went up 2% for Trump. Check out this part where the moderator actually stepped in, and you know, Kamala was lying about taking life in the womb and stuff like that, and the moderator actually steps in, and look what she says to Trump.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
So they love to do this, by the way. They did this the whole debate. They fact-checked Trump every step of the way. Not one single time did they call out Kamala for literally lying every time she opened her mouth. She also didn't answer a single question. And you're seeing that, by the way, post-debate polls. People are saying they still don't know where Kamala stands on anything. But I'll show you where she stands on life in the womb. Here's a little nifty chart that shows the different states in the U.S. and what abhorrent access looks like in that state. So you can see the dark red is a near total ban. So you see all these southern states, Texas up to West Virginia up there. And then you see this dark blue on the other side here. You can see the states that are dark blue over here. There's no restrictions based on gestational duration at all. In fact, there's a light blue state over here as well, Virginia. That means you can have the life of your child taken in the 3rd trimester. Now, never forget this video. You see all these wicked, depraved women clapping as AWOLs signs a bill, abhorrent, legal, whenever. In fact, you can see here under Timmy AWOL, babies born alive in botched aborants were left to, it's disgusting even reading this, but this is the reality that we live in today. Then he removed reporting requirements. Also remember that Timmy AWOL repealed the Born Alive Act, which would have saved the life of a child that was born, taken out of the mother, would have saved that child's life. They would have been considered a human being. He repealed that, so that child is no longer considered a human being. In fact, here's Ralph Northam, the 73rd governor of Virginia. Listen to this absolute disgusting thing. Remember, Kamala and the left and the moderators on ABC are trying to make it sound like taking life in the womb is just every now and again, and it's only for specific reasons, and it has to be only when it's like within the first few days. Like, are you kidding me? It happens literally from conception until the baby is born.
There are, when we talk about 3rd trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way.
The left doesn't want any restrictions whatsoever. And that's why you see Kamala's running mate, Timmy AWOL, signing bills that make literally just any taking life in the womb legal for whatever reason at any time. Minnesota is radical when it comes to this. And she swore that she would do this to the entire United States. You wouldn't have a choice but to live in a society that can just sacrifice whenever and however they want.
Once we have laws that have to be followed and enforced.
Also, you saw Kamala slam Trump for being a part of stopping the border bill from passing. And you even saw Biden slam the GOP for not passing this bill. But this bill would have permitted 1.4 million illegal immigrants to cross the border every single year. And it would be 4,000 illegals every single day. This would have major ramifications on our society, on our economy. But Kamala, Biden, the left, want to make this bill sound like it would have put 1,500 more ICE agents at the border, and it would have helped stop illegals from coming over the border. This was an absolute sham of a bill. It was the left doing their disguise, their radical agenda in something called the border bill. They did this with, in fact, you can go watch my video right here. This is a video I just put out. This is my most recent video. It's called She Just Promised to Persecute Christians. I go through a lot of her new policies that she just released. And I show in this video where Biden himself admits that a very expensive bill they just passed recently was a disguise bill, and they should have called it by its real name. And that bill was the Inflation Reduction Act. That bill was not about reducing inflation. It was a climate bill in disguise. In fact, it skyrocketed inflation. It was horrible for our economy, and we are paying the price for it today. It had nothing to do with reducing inflation, just like this bill had nothing to do with protecting the border. All it had to do with was letting 1.5 million illegal immigrants into the country. But even CNN, this was before the debate, they were looking into some things that Kamala stood for, and check out what they found to be a shocker.
2019, and what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding
There's
to
the
ICE.
truth.
K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren,
That's
and you really
insane.
see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here.
Look at this. Pledge to end immigrant detention. She's going to do this when she's president. She just can't say all these things out loud right now. But as long as you fall for the lies, this is the kind of stuff she's going to do day one. She's also going to use taxpayer money to fund gender care and transitions for detained migrants. Your money. Also, Trump called her out for being for defund the police, and she vehemently denied it.
Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up.
Look at her.
She gave all that stuff up.
She's saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. I'm not for defund the police. Here's a post they'd probably like you to forget about. This was from, look at this, June 1st, 2020. Anybody remember what was going on June 1st of 2020? If you're able to, chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. I showed this in a video as well, where Timmy Awol, her running mate, allowed Minneapolis to be burned to the ground, essentially. A precinct to be taken over by rioters that were peacefully protesting. And she wanted you to pitch in your money to post bail for these people. Also, lest we forget, she was all for defund the police.
Look, part of this movement, and it's not just a moment, it's a movement, standing on the shoulders of the movements before. Part of this has to be about changing the system, rehauling the system, upending the system.
So then if you're for overhauling, where do you stand on defund the police?
Look, right. So here's the thing. Defund the police. The issue behind it is that we need to reimagine how we are creating safety. For too long, the status quo thinking has been you get more safety by putting more cops on the street. Well, that's wrong.
She also said this during the debate.
This business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
I support buybacks, and it's something I'm so passionate about and so looking forward to being president to address. We've got to deal with this.
How mandatory is your gun buyback program?
It's mandatory.
Stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Kamala saying, stop lying, and then from her own face, admitting that she's going to have mandatory buybacks. Just in case you didn't get it, here she is talking about it again.
What would you do about the millions of specifically assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
And just in case you still didn't get it, here she is again.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote assault weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that idea not go against fundamentally the Second Amendment?
Yeah, great question. I do believe that we need to do buyback. So one, I'll tell you, when elected president, if the United States Congress continues to fail to have the courage to do something about this, I'm prepared to take executive action.
Kamala admits that she will take executive action to do a buyback program to confiscate your firearms to infringe on your Second Amendment rights. Also, in that clip where she told Trump to stop lying about her stance on firearms, she mentioned fracking. Well, she says that she won't ban fracking and that she's never changed how she's thought or felt about it.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Again, I could spend a couple hours going over all of the lies, but if you watch the debate, you know it was evident, it was absolutely clear that this whole debate was a setup and it was a sham and it was 3-on-1. It was the moderators and Kamala. You don't even have to like Trump to see that. But it doesn't matter how you feel about Trump or Kamala. This is a disgrace. And it shows the bias of our media. I mean, if you've ever opened your eyes, you would see the bias in mainstream media. But here it was on full display. They didn't even try to hide it. They didn't try to make it look any other way. They were telling you and showing you just how much power they have. Listen to how encouraging Psalm chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. These are some extremely encouraging verses that I think we could all take to heart and know that God is ultimately in control. Check this out. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. You know, if you live your life in complete and utter wickedness, in the shadows, and you have nothing but destruction and hatred and depravity in your heart and in your mind, you will be held accountable to God. But blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stands in the way of sinners. But blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord. But hey, let me know your thoughts about the debate down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, join this community. I would love to hear from you regularly. And please, hit that thumbs up button. You know when you like this video to get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.